What's going on, friends? Welcome to another conversation revolving around the 6-1-indie showcase. Mike here along with Kyle.
Hello.
And we're here with legitimately one of my favorite human beings on the planet, Ben Roush of Team Laserbeam. Ben, hello.
Hi. Hiya. How's it going?
It's going wonderfully. It's been way too long. The last time we spoke like this, Teenage Blob just came out, or it was about to come out. So it was a long time ago.
Yeah. It's been too long. Way too long.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and
thanks
for joining us here at 1 a.m. your time.
Yeah,
so thank you.
It's pretty late. It's been a long day of making a video game. But this is a good way to finish a day off.
Yeah. Well, Ben, I feel like I talk about Team Laserbeam on a daily basis on 6-1-indie. But for those who have not been listening to me blabbering on for years on end at this point, who are you? What's Team Laserbeam? Give me your story.
So Team Laserbeam is a video game band. We're like a music band, but instead of making songs, we make video games. We've been together for 10 years now. We formed the band in 2014. And our goal was to create games that kind of just channeled this like punk spirit and aim to like deliver maximum impact in the shortest playtime possible. So yeah, we did a long string of like aggressively short little punk games that kind of accumulated with Teenage Blob, which we've chatted about in the past. And Teenage Blob was kind of a turning point for us with the band of like shifting from making these like really small, really scrappy little games to being like, hey, what can we do if we were actually focusing all our efforts and energy into doing this thing? Like, what would a Team Laserbeam game look like if it wasn't just being like smashed out over weekends and late nights, but like was like, you know, we turned pro basically. And so yeah, that's what we did with Teenage Blob. Initially, we were just doing it like the old format for a long time, and then managed to get funding for the last stretch of development on that, which allowed us to like launch Team Laserbeam 2.0, which has now evolved to a point where there's 11 of us working on this giant game, Wrestling with Emotions. Yeah. So it's been a big evolution.
Yeah, we were saying before recording, last time we spoke, like it was 3 people on the team or in the band, and now up to 11. And such like it both feels like an eternity ago, but also like not that long ago.
Yeah.
It's really, I like just watching you guys just as a fan and like obviously a friend and all that kind of stuff. I just admire the growth so much, and it's so cool to see how far, like, it's definitely like you guys are still very much Team Laserbeam, but yeah, like you said, like you've gone pro and it's like very apparent.
Yeah. No, it's a really cool feeling. Like, so the original lineup of the band was like just this like power trio, and we're like, cool, everything's like drum, bass, and guitar, you know, code, art, and music, and like, you know, those three roles, and we do everything like as this little small core team. But it's been really cool now with Wrestling with Emotions to be like, hey, like, you know, bring in extra guest writers, extra art. We've got like 4 different people contributing songs to the game. And it's also just some of my favorite people that we're getting to make this game with, which has also just been lovely. So it's just like more good vibes, more love and high fives. So yeah, it's been great.
That's what it's all about. Yeah, I mean, let's get into the game itself. So, Wrestling with Emotions, new kid on the block, a returning game for the showcase. You were a part of our very first production when we were scrappy little young lads. Mm-hmm. Now we're old, grizzled men and burnt out.
2 years. It's a long time.
It's a long time. Clearly, the game has gone through such a massive like growth period in that short time alone. I'm very curious with like the launch of like Team Laserbeam 2.0, what made you decide, or I guess the team decide, okay, we're going to do a Wrestling with Emotions sequel versus like a brand new idea versus picking another game as a sequel instead?
Yeah. So it was a tough decision to kind of be like, you know, what do we do next? Now going into this, knowing that we want to make something good, right? We're like, in the past, it was just like, we just want to make something that will make us laugh. And then we realized like, oh, hey, this is making other people laugh. That's pretty cool. But like, you know, we weren't, it wasn't well considered at all. None of our older games were just like very spontaneous. We just kind of like threw them out there. And so going into this project and being like, we want to do something good. We want to like really, you know, like put everything into this. And, you know, like trying to market Teenage Blob was insanely hard because it was such a strange offering. And like, for me, that's why it's exciting, because it's like, there's nothing else really like that out there. That's like half a game, half an album. but it was very difficult to market either to people that were into games or albums because it was just this weird like anomaly. So yeah, with the new game, we were like, yeah, figure out something that's just got like a strong, solid hook that like we've ideally seen, you know, something from people that people want more of this kind of thing. And we'd done the original Wrestling with Emotions game in 2016. And, you know, of that string of short games that we did, was probably the one that seemed to like strike a chord most with people while also giving us a feeling like there's really something cool here to like dig deeper into. Even though the original game was like 7 minutes in total, you know, and a really silly, not well thought out, kind of a total mess. There was this like this for me very appealing idea of like exploring emotions and an emotional kind of story within a wrestling kind of context. So yeah, we were like, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, what drew you to making a dating sim in a wrestling universe? Like, why wrestling?
So I don't like it's strange, right? Like in retrospect, I can find all these reasons why I'm like, oh yeah, that was a good idea. It was a really good idea. But it was really just at the time, like kind of just like a joke of like trying to make a dating simulator out of everything. So we made an ice cream cone dating simulator. We made a dating simulator where you were planets like smashing into each other and making little like meteor babies. You know, we'd like, I was just very into that idea of exploring sort of like romantic situations outside of what you would normally expect to find them. And the name Wrestling with Emotions was like also part of the impetus of that, of like, Jason, Richard, and I were hanging out one evening, and Jason like loudly threw a beer bottle into like a steel dustbin, and it made this loud sound. He was like, "Oh, it sounds like wrestling." I was like, "Wrestling with emotions." And it's like it was just like the word, the phrase popped up, and then the game kind of followed out of that. But now, as we've been doing it, now you realize like, oh, hey, there's all these amazing ways that this really kind of like links together, like to get into really interesting sort of like thematic spaces as like a genre game of the dating sim genre is like a genre that presents the player with an idea of choice and like what do you want to do and telling your own story, but is often like really limited by like the medium itself of like you can't actually have all this choice versus like let's say like a tabletop RPG or something where you can go totally wild and your DM can like entertain whatever crazy ideas you can come up with. You know, within a traditional sort of dating sim type setting, it's like pretty rigid actually of like, you know, you unlock these different endings, you can romance different characters, but like your path is relatively like on rails and your choices are generally, obviously there's exceptions, but generally like pretty limited in terms of like their actual impact. So we really wanted to push that with this game of being like really rattle the cages of that while also like being kind of self-aware of the fact that like you don't have total freedom of choice. You're choosing between 3 options on a screen. And we kind of call that out. And I think that there's like a beautiful parallel there as well with the wrestling world where it's like wrestlers don't have total agency over their journey, right? It's like they're bound by the booker of their promotion as to, you know, whether they're going to win or lose, like what kind of character they're going to be. And so you have this whole career of being an artist, basically, and you're hoping to do your best and like, you know, prove yourself and like, you know, get to the top of your promotion, but like you don't have that full freedom of choice. And so I just felt like there's a really cool like synergy there between the genre and the real world influence, and bringing them together in a story like has all kinds of interesting emergent kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So like with that in mind and with like the history of the original game and people's attachment to it, you mentioned possibly before we started recording, I don't remember anymore. You mentioned that this is going to be Laserbeam's biggest game. Like, I'm curious, obviously say what you want, don't say what you want, but like, what does that mean? Like
in terms of the actual scale?
I guess like,
it's
in
huge.
terms of the scale and the features and like just whatever you could kind of give context.
It's huge, right? So the original game was like 7 to 12 minutes. You speed dated your way through all these characters. And you asked them like a few questions and had a little wrestling moment. The current game, the demo alone is sort of like 40 minutes to an hour, depending on how long it takes to make choices or paint your nails. and that represents. It's sort of like a mashup of bits of the game, but I would say that sort of represents probably like what a 15th of the full game experience is like. So you're looking at about 15 hours of playtime. There's 16 different endings to unlock. The soundtrack is like 60 plus songs, like heaps and heaps and heaps of hand-drawn art. We've built like a whole bunch of like 3D environments and stuff. It's like the original game was like, if people, watching this, like, can imagine it's like, it was white, like peach, yellow, and like a seafoam green, like four colors, like 3 colors. Yeah. That was the whole game. And now the like jump in fidelity is just like, it's really wild to, and we're still trying to hold on to that punky charm of the original one, and it's still kind of wobbly and scribbly, and even though we got these 3D worlds, we're mapping all of these like 2D illustrations onto it. But it really is, just in terms of scale, like worlds apart. There's all these mini games now, and actual wrestling. There was no wrestling in the original game. Like the game ended as soon as the wrestling started, basically. Yeah. So there is like a card-based wrestling system in the game.
Oh, interesting.
Really deep character creation. Like your kind of identity is also like a very strong sort of like thematic thread through the whole thing. And so a lot of the systems interconnect around the idea of you being able to change and shape your character as you're going, like who you are, not just like putting on a different piece of like gear or something, but like literally changing of like, okay, yesterday I was Mrs. Average Mystery Kitten, but this week I'm Mr. Average Mystery Kitten or whatever, So yeah, there's a lot going on. It's pretty deep.
I never thought, after falling in love with all of the Laser Beam games a couple years back, I never thought I'd get a 15-hour game out of you guys.
That's wild. I never thought I'd make a 15-hour game. It's a very strange position to be in.
How does it feel? Is it like, do you feel like just pressure? Is it a nice like sense of like freedom of like, oh yeah, we have this massive experience that we just get to play around with? Like,
yeah. And to add to that, were you planning a same smaller scale, and then when you got into it, you were just like, oh, let's do more of this and more of this, and just kind of kept going and going and going?
Yeah, things definitely snowballed. We actually also cut some stuff out. There's like 7 sort of main characters that you can form relationships with, if that's like rivalries or partnerships. At some point in time, I was considering like 9 of those characters, just because we have all these cool characters that I was attached to, and I knew I wanted to add some new ones, and we're like, no, just get rid of them. Like, so things really, really did snowball. And it feels generally really good. I think people need that, like throwing themselves out of their comfort zone. I mean, I guess you folks have had that a bit the last while as well, right? Where it's like,
yeah, for sure,
very much so.
You get like thrown into the deep end, and it's like, I think those are really those moments where it's like, it's scary, but like that's how you grow as a person, and that's how you do like make your best contributions towards other people, is by really putting yourself out there and putting yourself on the hook, right?
Yeah, I think like using like kind of in a weird way, we have no idea what goes into actually making a video game, so this is not a comparison. But with that notion in mind, like that first showcase that we were all a part of, that where we first showed off this game, like it was literally me and Kyle at my old job in the soundstage with this camera, versus what we're doing now is like night and day. And it very much felt like jumping into the deep end of just like fully committing and fully going in.
In addition to, we've said it a million times, for like that first showcase, the games we showed were the ones that submitted. And now we got close to 1,000 submissions this time around. Like, it's just absolutely just bonkers. And we are fully in the deep end, and we are waiting and trying to just reach the water,
That's so cool, but so rad as well to have that like validation that like
for sure,
there's all these people out there that are like been excited for more cool, thoughtful, insightful, passionate people, sharing like the cool shit that's out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because there's too much cool shit out there. So, yeah. It's funny, like I just pulled up Discord to like potentially have like our backup plan because Zencaster was giving us issues. Like literally the last DM I sent you was about that showcase.
Oh no way.
Which is hilarious.
Wow. Yeah, that
Speaking
was cool.
Of, no, go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to say, I think that might have been also been the first time that Racing with Emotions was featured in any kind of showcase or event like that.
I think so.
We've had a couple cool ones now between now and then as well. So this feels like quite a full circle moment.
Yeah, didn't I see you guys pop up at, what was it, a ID at Xbox show, I think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was wild. That was really wild. Yeah, very cool. It was really rad. Like Microsoft seemed very keen on us getting the game onto Xbox and stuff, and they've been really supportive and like with that kind of thing, showing the game off and being like, hey, this thing's coming. Like, yeah, it was a very cool feeling. Again, coming from the space of making these like crappy, weird little punk games to like having like multiple people from Microsoft messaging us, being like, hello, hi.
Yeah, I think like me and Kyle watched that show together because obviously we just try to like keep up with everything going on. But when I forgot how that trailer started, but like it was very clear from like the first second what the game was. And I kid you not, and apologies for the cursing, but like I screamed out to Kyle. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was just like, it felt like seeing my kid like graduate college.
The sense of pride that grew in us
it's like,
is wild.
fuck yeah, my weird little scrappy punk rock dudes are getting this validation, but from a first party. This is so sick.
Yeah.
And yeah, cool. To kind of reiterate what you just said, like I out of like the first parties and whatnot, ID at Xbox like genuinely like truly does care. Like that team is so incredible. So I'm really happy to see like they definitely are recognizing like the talent and the scope and
and like such a track record with propelling indies out there like since the 360 days pretty much like it's really cool like to that's kind of lineage now I guess of what they're having of like pushing indies, way past where, they'd kind of gone previously in the console world, right? You think back to like pre 360 days, everything was just like, flash games and shit.
Yeah.
Sure. And then, Meat Boy, Fez, Braid, all of that stuff being like, hey, Castle Crashers, like, it was quite a cool little golden age. And yeah, we're very stoked that we're kind of now able to be on this like next wave of 2024 indies or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, you just listed like some all-timers. How does it feel being in like that weird club now?
Well, like we can join that club if people want to play our game and like it that much. But, it's still it's going to be. I'm for sure going to have a big cry when I finally see the game running on an Xbox. I'm going to be like, that's going to be a big moment for me.
Because this would be your first console release.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah. I mean, Blob was like even our first Steam game. It's like I said, we have this back catalog of stuff that we released, but it was all just like self-published, all just put out on itch.
Yeah.
So the stepping stones are coming pretty hard and fast for us now, which is cool.
What I was going to ask you, because we were talking about things that are cool as shit, your art style is so identifiable and so unique that from now on, whenever I see an indie game that looks even remotely close to a Team Laserbeam game, it's like, oh no, is that Team Laserbeam? Like that's them. Like they are being inspired by your artwork. So like, what goes into the art? Like everything's so vibrant and colorful, and like I said, just so unique.
Rad. So the art's an interesting one, like for me at least, like within my kind of trajectory as an artist. Like I've always been super into drawing, and at different points in my life was kind of like discouraged from drawing. Like I got kicked out of art in high school and stuff, where they were just like, you suck, basically. And at other points when I was like trying to draw stuff, I was always kind of trying to draw like could convince people that I could draw well. So like the last big drawing project that I had, like maybe outside of Team Laserbeam, was making this comic book Red Air, and I sourced like or shot references for like every frame of the comic, and it's like really cinematic and trying to look really good and convince people that I could draw when like maybe I can't. With Team Laserbeam, it's just lean into exactly who I am, like every imperfection, just squiggle something on the screen. It's like first time perfect, like don't redo it, don't like, just like really. And I think it's just like a visualization of like the core, what's the word? Like the core agenda of Team Laserbeam to like celebrate human imperfection and to bring that into the game space where it's often very lacking, right? Because games can generally be super polished, which is good if you don't want like a buggy, broken experience, but can be like creatively like suck a lot of the heart and personality out of stuff because it's been like, so overwrought. Like we just want to make stuff that like doesn't look perfect, looks like it's made by human beings, it's like not made by robots. And so the art's very much just like a visualization of that, like in terms of its loose, wobbly wiggliness. And in terms of the colors and stuff, it's been something that we've been like just, I guess, developing over time. And like, I think the original Snow Cones game that we did had like some really strong use of like quite a like nice pastel kind of color palette. And then Wrestling with Emotions, the original, as I mentioned, was also like a very limited palette. So it was like, visually simple, but it was like really effective. And I think that that's now just kind of snowballed into this weird maximalist, colorful candy acid trip thing that we got going on.
Yeah, I love it.
Awesome,
so many
you.
games these days are so like dark and grungy, and a little this blast of colors like brings a smile to my face. So I want to say that to you.
Awesome, thanks. That's good to hear.
Yeah, going like doing a few of these conversations now, and like we have a lot more lined up, which you could go check out at sixoneindie.com/showcase. A common theme has been like just like the bits and pieces about the indie scene and the indie spirit, and like I love that what you mentioned, like embracing imperfections, like that is so indie, and I think that's really what separates the AAA scene from this like scrappy, grinding away indie scene. So yeah, I love like despite it being Team Laserbeam 2.0 and like how much you've expanded over the years, like I still love that you have that scrappiness at heart, and like like you said, like really embracing the human element, and especially with like a lot of the conversation going on right now about AI and all this bullshit. It's really really refreshing, and it's like something you don't really have to worry about. I mean, obviously there's exceptions, but you don't have to really worry about that for the people that are in the scene and in the know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We can't have a conversation without talking about music. So
that's what I was waiting for. I didn't want to bring it up. I'm gonna let Mike bring it up.
And I promise we'll try to keep this tight because I know we went off the rails with Teenage Blob. So for Wrestling with Emotions, New Cal on the Block, you mentioned you're working with 4 musicians.
Yeah.
I know you are very ingrained in like the Philly punk rock scene, and like obviously just like you have such a musical background. It's obvious from your actual physical background right now. Can you talk a little bit about who is involved with the game itself in terms of the music?
Yeah, so we have a very exciting little composition gang. So the original composer for all the Team Laserbeam games is Jason Sutherland, who did all the music for everything that we did up until we collaborated with the Super Weeks on Teenage Blob. So Jay is doing music on the game. I'm doing music on the game, which is really exciting because it's going to be, like I've been part of a whole bunch of bands, mostly in a more like visual kind of sense of like doing live video performance and stuff like that. But, never as like the songwriter, never as the person coming up with the tunes and stuff. And
listen, JF versus everything. I know. I got you.
Yes, exactly right. Well, and then on that note, our other composer is Junior Laidley, who is part of that JF vibe. He's the drummer for Johnny Farner.
Oh, awesome.
Yes, and so Johnny Farner is like my favorite band, favorite people, besties who I sometimes got to tour with and stuff. And Junior's just an amazing composer, producer. He has a solo project called Fridge Poetry. So he's doing a bunch of the tunes, and then finishing things off is our friend Catherine Pretorius, who performs under the stage name Dope St. Jude. And she's like a hip hop artist,
nice.
A really amazing. I'm obviously biased because again, one of my besties, but truly of like her generation as the kind of message and stuff that she has. In my heart, like the best rapper out of South Africa of like our generation. From my perspective, we've obviously had a lot of very talented people, but Catherine is amazing and super super cool to be working with her. She's also one of the writers on the game.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah, but so yeah, between four of us, like I said, more than 60 songs that's in the soundtrack, and again, the fidelity is like a huge jump from like the old game was like. It's really kind of like tinny little 15-second loops of songs. And now we have these like way more lush, full, dense kind of, you know, some of the tracks are like 6 minutes long, like, you know, really epic, like not just a little game loop, but still trying to hold on to that same spirit of the original one as well. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah, even Teenage Blob, the Super Weeks, I believe they recorded. I think you were with them, right, on location in Philly. It was what's that studio name?
There was Big Mama's Warehouse.
I think that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. So I wasn't around for the recording of that, the Teenage Blob songs at the time, but been around for other stuff. Yeah. You know, we're via long distance, like, you know, with the gang through that process of like, you know, hearing the songs as these early demos, and literally over the course of years, things building up to the point where we were like, oh, cool, let's actually turn this into this experience together. Yeah,
I love that. Obviously, like, something I always admired about you is just like your ear, and like you have such a keen taste in music, and it's something that's just like, it's so varied, it's so open. And it's like kind of rare nowadays, and I love that. Even with the games, and especially now with, again, Laser Beam 2.0, you're still keeping it in the family, and I love that. Like you mentioned, like the hip hop and just like a lot of the stuff with like JF versus everything. It seems like you're not pigeonholing yourself to like that strict punk rock genre. Like, you know, something I always say to like friends and family and stuff, it's like genre, like nowadays it's irrelevant. Like, sure, I'm a punk rock kid, I'm an emo kid, but like you, like, for example, like I've been listening to a lot of Bill Murray lately, the band Bill Murray, not the actor, and like just released this like really sick emo track with like country twang melodies with like a what the fuck's the I don't know, whatever, like country twang with like chugging and like a little bit of screaming. It's like, yeah, like that's cool. What it's all about. So like, I appreciate that you are still keeping that spirit of just like being open and just like, introducing new stuff and new concepts to audiences.
Yeah, I think it's also, if you're going to be playing a game that's 15 minutes long, you're gonna want some dynamics there, right?
Yeah,
exactly. To have different like highs and lows, and we totally do have full on little like, you know, punk bangers in there, but they're more impactful because they're balanced against these like, you know, chill kind of like vaporwavy tracks and stuff that's just designed to try and make people laugh, right? And like, you know, like really trying to get like a full spectrum of emotions from people over the course of playing the game, and the music is absolutely like at the core of that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you too much longer because it's late on your end, but I do have to ask to close out the music conversation. What are you listening to right now?
Oh man,
what's the rotation? What's the vibe?
So, there's so much good stuff. Do you know the band Bodega? I think they're from New York as well. They just dropped like 2 new songs, which are great. There's a new Camera Obscura song that dropped today, which is great. New Real Estate album that just came out, which is amazing. But like, I've been on like a weird tip the last while of like, I discovered this like super obscure band. Like, if anyone that gets to see this knows this band, please like reach out to me. Be like, I know this band, because I'm going to be so happy when I finally find someone that like knows they are. They're called Forever Star. And they just popped up on my wife's like Spotify while we were driving in the car. And I was like, what on earth is this? So it's like shoegaze and like breakcore together. These crazy, insane drums that sound like you're in like SSX Tricky or something, like some 90s PlayStation game. But then the guitar is like...
You're talking my language here, Ben.
Dude, Kyle, you got to check it out. Like, everyone should be checking this band out. They're so cool. They're called Forever Star. The album art, they did a series of singles and then bundled them as an EP. But the album art is just photographs of like old 90s cars. and it just says on the cover, play at max volume. Like, that's the only instruction. Just like listen to this really loud. It's beautiful and really cool. So that's my big tip of the moment is Forever Star.
Hell yeah. I have it open right now on Spotify, my other window.
Cool.
Minimize that. That's for later.
Cool.
Before we close things out, I do have to do a quick left turn. Matthew Wright, another member of the 6-1 crew, is particularly in love with one Team Laserbeam project, and that's Shroom and Gloom. I have to ask, will we ever see anything new from Shroom and Gloom? This is for Matt.
Dude, Mike, I just love the synchronicity with our vibes always. So I was on the music thing, almost going to further derail things by talking about my Shroom and Gloom soundtrack, which is called Shroom and Tune.
Yes.
And it is my inspiration for Shroom and Gloom. When I'm working on Shroom and Gloom, I put that soundtrack on, and it's like, have you ever come across the genre dream punk?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like dream punk kind of vibes, like
Hell yeah.
washy, weird. I don't know how do you the weird, trippy, future organic mushroom music. So yeah, we are working on Shroom and Gloom, and it's very, very exciting. I'm also really stoked about that game. So that just popped up as like, we just made that as a game jam. We'd already started Racing with Emotions, and I just went away with some friends of mine from Free Lives for like a week to go make games for 7-day FPS, right? Try and make a first-person game in the course of 7 days. And we came up with that little card game, and I was like, oh, damn it. What have we done now? Like, no, I just want to make this card game. But so, yeah, as we're now approaching the end of working on Racing with Emotions, things are 100% happening with Shroom and Gloom.
Hell yeah.
We've got...
very excited to deliver that news to Matt. But continue what
cool.
you were just going to say. Sorry.
Yeah. No. We're like our big goal is to try to figure out what the meta game is for it, like, because the plan with that game was always that it's like to take everything that we love with roguelike deck builders, but that other people don't make cards for, right? Like all of the in-between bits, all the parts that aren't cards in Slay the Spire, what if they were all cards, like only cards? Nothing that isn't card. Any system that's in the game has to tie back into cards. And so we have in the current form, 2 decks, the combat deck that you use for fighting the mushrooms, exploration deck that you use for navigating the dungeons. And we've now built a 3rd deck, which is like your character deck, and that deck's persistent. So as you unlock things over each run, you start building up this deck of cards that you can then pick out a hand to go into each run with, and that shapes your character.
Oh, that's so exciting.
It's very exciting. I can't wait to really get stuck into that proper. Hopefully future showcase.
I was just going to say, like, hey, when you're ready to show it off, you know where to go.
Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for hanging out. Genuinely, I love you dearly. I'm so happy that you are a part of my life. I am such a huge fan, and cannot wait for both the team and everybody else to check out all 15 hours of Wrestling with Emotions New Kid on the Block. Of course, check out the demo now on Steam and itch. I'm going to throw it to you to plug away at your stuff, but I do want to shout out, if you go to teamlaserbeam.itch.io, you could buy all 10 of the Team Laserbeam games for $18.89. I just did the math. Goddamn, go buy them. It's the best $20 you'll ever spend in your life. But yeah, Ben, if you have anything you want to plug, say,
well, to pick up on what you were saying, I think that you can actually get a bundle of all of our games for $14.20.
Even better. Look at that.
But if anyone out there is interested in checking out Racing with Emotions, we have a really neat little demo that we just dropped, like a mega update to it, which adds in a new graffiti mini game and a bunch of more love and polish. So that's up on Steam and also up on itch. If you do play the demo, send us pictures of your customized nails or your graffiti. So we love seeing what people do with our stuff. And otherwise, as always, wish lists mega appreciated, like the currency of indies in 2024. Otherwise, just be excellent to each other. Stay rad out there.
I'm just going to end it like that. Yeah. sixoneindie.com/showcase, all that good stuff. You know the deal. Thank you so much. Love you. Goodbye. See you for the next one. I don't know, depending on what order you're listening to these in.
Bye.